Well, anyway, most of you are not familiar with this book which we're going to read from, but you are familiar with Lord Chaitanya, I think. Is that correct? Everybody is familiar. You've heard quite a lot about Lord Chaitanya, which most of you probably not heard much about until you came to ISKCON, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Because generally speaking, in India, not many people, unless you happen to be born in Bengal, maybe you hear something about it, may not be very correct, but something. Or maybe born in Orissa, but elsewhere not so well known, occasionally, but not so well known. You may be known as a saint or as something, a reformer, or I don't know what people think he is. But not many know of his actual position, the great good fortune that he's bestowed upon us. Very few. So, some literatures have been written, and now they've of course translated to English. Previously, they were mostly hidden in the Bengali language. Many of them were mispresented by unscrupulous people who tried to extract some false understanding of both Lord Chaitanya and his teachings. There's so many groups like that. But to really enter into the mission or the mood, let's say, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have to hear from those who are genuinely following the path which Lord Chaitanya introduced and which he had established. In his own words, he requested some of his chief followers, the 6 Goswamis. You may have heard of the 6 Goswamis. You've heard of the 6 Goswamis, what they've heard. You've heard the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, they usually say. They were living in Vrindavan, they were from there in terms of their birth. They lived together in Vrindavan for a long time, and they compiled most of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in a very present philosophical way to establish this path of bhakti devotional service, very authorized and scriptural presentations. At the same time, there were biographies compiled of Lord Chaitanya. So the Goswamis, they didn't deal with the biographical side, they dealt with the philosophical side to establish the authenticity or we call Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the Vaishnavism of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sankirtan movement, to establish that as an authoritative path. Because everything has to be established traditionally. Even nowadays, scholars will not accept anything unless it's based on some, shastric foundation or some logical foundation. You've got to convince them. Otherwise they'll present it to the public as being an authorized branch or whatever. So they established the philosophical nature of Lord Chaitanya's movement in a very authoritative way. Such a great way. In fact, one time I saw in London, maybe 1972, I think it must have been 72, in London, in the university there, the London University of Asian Oriental Studies. They had a big exhibition in the university of the philosophical writings of Jiva and Rupa Goswami. And the English university there, a big board, big sign, banner actually, and it said the writings of Jiva and Rupa Goswamis, 2 of the greatest philosophers the world has ever known. That was their banner. And sure enough, especially Jiva Goswami, his philosophy pretty much exceeds any other. Prabhupada said he was the greatest philosopher of all time. His philosophy certainly, well, not his philosophy, but the way he presents the philosophy is so complete and so deep and so convincing. No, I mean every philosophy actually it can be either dealt with or contained within it. It covers everything. So his writings are so great. But at the same time, for most people, philosophy is only, for most people, not all, but for most people, philosophy is sort of comes a bit later. They get some basic understanding, but not the depth that we're talking about here. So for the majority of people, the philosophy is presented in a more, let's say, palatable, if you want to say that, digestible way would be better. Digestible way. So we have here one example of that. And so the biographers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life, who recorded the pastimes at the time, themselves did not directly produce this literature or even other literatures much, but their associates did. So Chaitanya Charitamrita, for instance, is one such book. And this is another one, Chaitanya Bhagavat, which was compiled by Vrindavan Das Thakur, who was not, directly speaking, a direct associate of Lord Chaitanya. He was some when he was a baby, but not much. But he heard everything from Murari Gupta and from others about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, and presented in such a way that by hearing the pastimes one can also understand the essence of the philosophy. And not only that, but one can understand how to apply it. See, knowledge is very necessary. We all know knowledge is not really much use unless you apply it, is it? Just like you have a baby. What's your baby's name? Pardon?
Parthi.
So, you know, we have some knowledge of how to look after the baby, right? But if you don't apply it, the knowledge is not much use. You have to apply the knowledge. He needs feeding. You will feed the baby. If you don't have, you may have knowledge he needs feeding, but if you don't feed the baby, it's not much use having the knowledge. It's not going to help the baby. The baby cannot speak language as we have language, will be crying. And you say, look, I know you want feeding. What's your problem? I know you want feeding. You should know, I know it, I know you do. You don't have to keep telling me, I know it. That's not going to help the baby. It won't do any good at all. Make the baby even more frustrated. If he knew, or the baby knew that you knew that the baby wanted feeding and not going to feed it, that's going to make the baby even worse. Right? What is this? A hopeless situation. So people have knowledge, they don't know how to use the knowledge. It's really better not to have the knowledge at all. And this is one of the problems. You got a banana for me? Where's my banana? Do you never stop eating? He never stops eating, this guy. Well, I'm glad. I'm really impressed, I tell you. Devash, I'm really impressed with you. You're amazing. You deserve a reward. Here, where's that apple pie? Give him the apple pie. Unfortunately, we don't have it right now. So how to put the knowledge into practice, that's the secret, isn't it? That's what really counts. Anyone can have knowledge in one sense, you just have to read it and remember it and say, yes, I know. But everyone knows that knowing how to use it is the more important factor. Knowledge, the wisdom, the realization which comes from proper use of knowledge. Otherwise we can misuse knowledge altogether. A detrimental or negative effect. So great devotees, they don't just give knowledge, they also teach us. They teach us how to use it. So let's hear tonight. We've been reading from this wonderful book. Last night we read something, and on and off we've been discussing it the last few weeks. So we're on a pastime right now where Hare Thakur, who was one of the chief associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was himself born in a Muslim family, and at a very early age he left home. He took up the path of chanting the holy names. Before he even met Lord Chaitanya, this took place. And he was chanting day and night practically. Every day at least 300,000 names a day. Some of you may be chanting on beads. I think some of you are chanting a lot on beads, is that right to say? Some are even chanting 16 rounds on the mala, is that correct? Others may not be doing that much, but most of you are chanting something, I think. So we know 16 rounds a day is approximately 27,000 names. So if you're chanting 300,000 names, that's more than 10 times that. More than 10 times. So you're chanting 16 rounds. He was chanting 190 rounds. 192 to be exact. 3 lakhs. Or 3 times 64. More than 3 lakhs. But he was chanting like that every day, and we can barely chant 16 rounds, I think. Sometimes a struggle to finish 16 rounds. Of course we can say he had no children, he had no family, he had no job per se. But even if you don't have children, job, and still you find the individual struggles to chant 16 rounds sometimes. You want to come and sit with me? Come on, what's your name? What's her name?
Chinmay Radha.
Pardon?
Chinmay Radha.
Chinmay Radha, what a lovely name. Chinmay Radha. Chinmay Radha.
Radha? Radha.
Where are you? Are you there? Where are you going? Going in a different direction. Not sure where you're going.
Freelancing.
Freelance, yeah, freelance. When you're a baby, everything's freelance, isn't it? You can go anywhere, do anything, and you can get away with it. Practically. You get to a certain age, right, they start making it hard for you, don't they? Hey, Kirtan? Can't do what you want anymore. You can't pull things off tables and dribble on the floor and make a noise everywhere you go. Come on, Chinmay Radha. Come on, Chinmay Radha. Well, where's the speaker? That's why she's going over there. She hears the sound over there. That's how it works. They don't know how it works. They haven't got that. Haribo! She looks over there. As soon as I say something, she looks over there. Haribo! But still, to chant 190 something rounds a day would, more or less, even if you chanted non-stop, would take you 24 hours. Pretty much. Maybe chant a little faster. Hare Das obviously chant a little bit faster, but he was practically not sleeping or eating. He was just chanting. But that was his service. I mean, Lord Chaitanya, when later on, when he came into the association of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Chaitanya established him officially as the Nama Acharya. We have Acharyas, those who especially great souls who establish whatever it is. They're like teachers by example. They establish the path. So he was the Acharya of the Nama, the name, of the chanting of the holy name. And there are many stories about him. But we're reading one, we have been reading one, past time when he was arrested. He was chanting day and night in his cave. He was living in an area of Bengal called Pulia, which, if you know Bengal, Calcutta is north of Calcutta. Between Calcutta and Navadweep, there was one town called Shantipur, and it was there that Advaitacharya was residing mostly. And not far from there is an area called Fulia. And then when Haridas came to that area, he was already a young man, he came to that area and he started to reside. He met Advaitacharya. Advaitacharya made arrangements for him to reside in different places, and amongst them was a place called Fulia, which is, I guess in those days, it was pretty much just a rural area, still is fairly rural. And he would reside there in his simple dwelling, chanting day and night. But because he was born of a Muslim family, the local Muslim administrator, general term of Qazi is applied, was very envious and was very angry to hear that this Muslim had become, basically as far as he was concerned, had become a Hindu and was being respected by other Hindus, and with the risk also that other Muslims were also becoming inclined. So he didn't like this, plus the fact that he was no longer getting as much respect as this other fellow, Haridas Thakur. So the local Qazi was very upset and became quite angry, reported to the Nawab, the king, and they had him arrested. He was taken to prison. There was much objection to it, but anyway, they took him to prison. And he was tried, and he was sentenced to death because he refused to, to change his decision to practice the behavior they thought was Hinduism. He refused to resort or return to his Muslim faith, so to speak. And so the result was that the king had him sentenced to death by being whipped to death. They would drag him through the streets, whipping and whipping until he was dead. That was the punishment. And usually people did, and it was often the case, given as a punishment to different people for different things, but usually people would die very quickly. After just some few marketplaces, they'd be dead. But Haridas, they tried their best to kill him, whipping and dragging and beating him, and they could not. He was not dying. And when they came to the end, every single marketplace and street they could think of in the town, they had whipped him and beaten him and dragged him. But he was still not dead. And they did not know what to do. The guards were, in English term, you may not know it, flabbergasted. They were totally exhausted and frustrated. They were afraid also because they thought that if we don't kill him, the Muslim guards, they thought our Muslim master may kill us for failing in our duty. So they were afraid. So Haridas, seeing their fear, so, what was the problem? And I said, that's the problem. We failed in our duty to kill you. And because of that, our master may kill us. So Haridas Thakur said, oh, you should have told me earlier. If I had known, I would have died immediately. I do not want to cause you any suffering. Now here's these people who've been trying to beat him to death for the last, all day long, whatever it is. And then he says, oh, you should have told me earlier, if my staying alive causes you suffering, then I will die. You never told me. And so then he said, please, Haridas, save us. They realized he was no ordinary person. No one had survived 2 or 3 marketplaces. He'd been beaten in 22 marketplaces. He could understand he was no ordinary person. So he said, all right, I'll die. And suddenly he went into the deepest samadhi that one can go in. It appeared that he was dead. They thought he was dead. He wasn't dead. They thought he was dead. They dragged him back to the magistrate, to the king, and they thought he was dead. They ordered him to be buried. And then the Qazi said, no, he should not be buried. If he is buried like all other pious Muslims, he may attain to heaven. He doesn't deserve that. He should be thrown in the Ganga, just like all the sinful Hindus so that he may go to hell with all of them. So they eventually, after great difficulty, they threw him into the Ganga. And of course, the Ganga carried him in her waves down the river and returning back to Fulia. He walked out of the river after coming out of Samadhi and returned to his cave-like dwelling and carried on chanting Hare Krishna. And after some time, the Muslim king found out that he was back there again, and he was shocked. He came there and fell at Haridas's feet and begged forgiveness and asked him, please, you are a great saint. I beg your forgiveness. He begged forgiveness. Basically, he surrendered to him, as did many of the other Muslims. Not all, but many. And he said, you can do whatever you like from now on. I will not impede anything you do in my jurisdiction. So that was the end of that particular. So we had a court case today in Tomsk in Russia, yesterday. So it came out successful. This one, first, it didn't look like it did, but it did in the long run. It came out, I could say, very successfully. And Haridas Thakur carried on with his chanting, and many people coming even more now after this incident. Everybody recognized that he was a great saint, obviously. Even the Muslims recognized it. This is no ordinary personality. So more than a great saint, actually. He was carrying on there, chanting and chanting. There's a lot more to be said about that pastime. That's just a historical brief outline of it, which illustrates the incredible devotion of Haridas, his intense humility, and his tremendous tolerance, and his unlimited degree of forgiveness, and his compassion for a living. Yet all the way through he was praying to the Lord, please have mercy upon these guards. Please don't punish them. Please deliver them. He didn't feel any enmity whatsoever. He felt nothing but love and compassion towards those who were trying to kill him. He felt no hatred whatsoever. This is the mood of a devotee. And when we say we may not have such a mood, but this is the mood of a devotee. He had no enemy whatsoever. So then, after long weeks, we discussed that pastime last night. So that's just a brief. So tonight we'll carry on, finish that pastime off. Where did we get to last night? Okay. So we've heard about the Nawab gaining forgiveness. No one, he said, there's no one in this world that can grasp your extraordinary position. You see everyone equally without perceiving friends and enemies. No, I beg your forgiveness. Everyone, whether elevated or wretched, automatically forgets about mundane life when he sees the lotus feet of Haridas Thakur. You say it's not easy to see his lotus feet, but everyone who sees those lotus feet forgets about mundane life. The Mohammedan had been angry enough to try to kill Haridas, but they were transformed and came to worship his lotus feet, accepting him as a holy man. After forgiving them, Haridas went to Fulia. With the holy name on his lips, Haridas came to an assembly of Brahmanas near Fulia. The Brahmins were overjoyed to see him, and they joined him in a roaring kirtan. He wasn't just sitting chanting japa, he himself propagated the loud chanting of the holy names as the primary method of God realization. More effective than silent chanting, especially in Kali Yuga. It's very hard to perform. Actually, japa itself strictly means silent. It doesn't mean the way we do it. It actually means chanting within the mind, manasika japa. Like that, not the vachika japa which we do, or a pungsu japa that's in the mouth with no sound. That type of chanting, but not the vachika japa which we do. Is really in the category of kirtan. It's loud chanting. So it's the oral reception, hearing through the ears, which is recommended in this age, of the sound vibration of the holy name, which benefits not only us, but it benefits everyone else who happens to be in earshot, or happens to hear the sound, or comes in contact with the sound vibration. It benefits other living entities, not just the chanter. When you chant to yourself, two effects you could say. One is, first of all, only you get the benefit, and secondly, you don't get anything from anyone else. It's like it's internal. And when you chant loud, it's a two-way thing. You get the benefit too, and you're giving the benefit to others. But then in return, you may have to, you're kind of connecting with them. So there's some association, reciprocation there, which may be favourable or unfavourable. There's a little risk is there. But in this age of Kali, this is the recommended path, is the loud chanting of the holy name. And this is what Hare Thakur propagated in general, was the loud chanting as being more effective. Now, chanting japa, whether loud or soft, or chanting, do any sadhana come to that, only has effect, or has a beneficial effect, if it is actually authorized. You can't just, and we all know the story of Ekalavya from Mahabharata and so on, how one may do something, and what you do may even be a bona fide thing, but unless it's authorized by the spiritual authority, it will not have the effect. It won't bear the fruit. It won't bear fruit. It has to be authorized. It's like, probably this example, you stick a letterbox up in front of your house. I don't think they have letterboxes in this country, but I don't mean the one that receives mail, the one that you put mail in to go to other places. And you may do that, it may look like the authorized one, but it won't have the effect. The postman will not come along and take your letters. In fact, he may report you to the police. You get the opposite effect. Similarly, you may chant, but unless our chanting is authorized and the means of chanting, then it will not bear the fruit. You may get some other fruit, karma phal or jnana phal, the fruit of material returns. But if one wants the actual fruit of chanting, devotion, bhakti phal, ultimately praying phal, the love of God, then one has to receive it from the right source and chant according to the right process. This is sadhana, stage of sadhana, not on spontaneous attraction platform. So we have to follow rules and regulations even on how we chant in general. Now in some cases you may be unable because of being dumb or deaf or something. That's different. But in general, that's the procedure. One chants according to the process given by the Acharya. So Haridas is a Nama Acharya, and he's recommended loud chant. So here this kirtan. So kirtan is we have our japa, that's our personal sadhana, purification. But for the general awakening of God consciousness, kirtan is the primary activity. In their midst, Haridas experienced waves of ecstasy through his whole body, sometimes crying, sometimes shivering, sometimes laughing, sometimes roaring loudly, and sometimes falling on the ground, totally immersed in love of God. For him, all the ecstatic symptoms of love of God manifest, and not that we imitate that. As we can hear about the pure devotees and understand their greatness, because by hearing about pure devotees, one becomes pure. One of the main ways of purification is to hear, not to imitate, but to hear about them. And when relevant, when it's relevant, we follow. We don't imitate. Some people imitate. There's a pastime of imitation coming up soon, and we'll hear about that one tonight. The Brahmins, however, also could not contain their joy. After some time, Haridas calmed himself and spoke to the Brahmins as they sat around him. The Brahmins, everything's not like this, some of it. The Brahmins were inquisitive. They were very a bit bewildered actually as to why Haridas Thakur had to go through this ordeal of being beaten in the marketplaces. So they inquired of him. He replied, "My dear friends, please do not feel unhappy because of what happened to me. Don't feel unhappy. As I stood in the court, I listened as the Mohammedans repeatedly blasphemed the Lord. It is for this that the Lord has punished me. I am actually very happy because my suffering should have been much more severe. The Lord has excused me with just a token punishment, you see. He said, just a token. I deserve to suffer more. Because I heard blasphemy and I didn't do anything about it. Because he did, in one sense, he did present the truth that he accepted. And he stood there, he didn't give up his life, he wasn't able to change them, and he didn't leave the place. So he said, for this reason, I deserve to be punished, and what I got was just a small token of what I deserved. See? One goes to hell if he hears blasphemy of the Lord. My sinful ears were filled with blasphemy, and so the Lord has punished me so that I may not commit the offense again. To teach me a lesson. The Mohammedans that had tortured Haridas and their families were eventually destroyed. Haridas left the village and went to live in a cave on the bank of the Ganga. He moved around in different places. However, although we hear that they were destroyed, it's not the will of Haridas. The great devotees of the Lord, they do not in any way feel any hatred to anyone. Not sometimes like ourselves, when, say for instance, someone does something to us which is not very nice, whatever speaks or does, we may feel a little hurt or whatever it may be. But we may not retaliate. We may not retaliate. We may say, I'll just be humble and tolerate, because I know that Krishna will give them a good lesson sooner or later. He'll teach them, he'll give them a good punishment sooner or later. They'll get the result of their behavior. I don't need to worry about it, because I'm very humble and I'm more advanced and I'm not going to get involved, and so on and so forth. But that's not the mood of an advanced devotee. An advanced devotee thinks only of the welfare of others. So Haridas was thinking of the welfare of all these Muslims. But at the same time, and those who approached him afterwards, of course, got his mercy, but those who didn't, it would appear, they were destroyed, or their lives became inauspicious. Because the Lord doesn't forgive. The devotee may forgive, but the Lord doesn't forgive. The Lord doesn't forgive anyone who causes such suffering, and deals with his devotees in such a way until they approach that devotee. If they approach the devotee, then the Lord also forgives. Otherwise, he doesn't forgive. Even if in the heart the devotee is forgiven, the Lord doesn't forgive. So those who approached, they were forgiven. Haridas left the village and went to live in a cave. Daily he would chant a minimum of 300,000 names of Lord Krishna. By the influence of the holy name and the presence of Haridas Thakur, the cave was transformed into a Vaikuntha planet in the spiritual sky. As the result of a pure devotee, he transforms everywhere into a place of pilgrimage. Better than a place of pilgrimage. Because by their association, immediately one can be transformed. A place of pilgrimage would take a long time before you become purified. But by the association of pure devotee, immediately one can be transformed. Haribol. Haribol. How is your daughter? Is she okay now? Feeling a bit better? She had a bit of a fever earlier on. Is it okay now? No? She's okay now. I think it was the wind. Someone was telling me their children were were also suffering fever when they took them outside in the wind and the sun. It was a funny weather, you know, affected a lot of people. Good. Hare. So, where do we get to? Yes. So Haridas Thakur, he was transforming the association of pure devotee, because they don't have any other objective other than pleasing Krishna. Their whole consciousness is focused on Krishna. So the association of a pure devotee, anyone who comes in association naturally, just like earlier on, we heard about Haridas Thakur, and this is way before Lord Chaitanya even appeared, how he transformed the life of one prostitute who was sent by the local administrator, a Hindu in that case, Ramchandra Khan, to try to pollute him, try to cause Haridas to fall down into illicit sex. Well, she completely failed. She tried 3 nights in a row, by every means under the moon, not the sun, because it was night time, every means under the moon to try to tempt Haridas Thakur, but he was not tempted in any way. He promised her when she first came. She said, "Oh, my dear lady," whatever she was asking, please satisfy my desires. And Haridas said, "I will satisfy all your desires, whatever you want, I assure you." He said that to her as soon as she arrived. So she thought, for sure, she's gonna, fulfill her mission to have union with Haridas, because he said he'll fulfill all of my desires, so that's my desire. So he said, "But first, please be patient, because I have made a vow to chant 10 million names in this month, and I haven't quite finished. So I'll be chanting for a while, but once I finish, I will fulfill all desires. Whatever you ask me, I will do. Rest assured." So she was confident. So after the 3rd night she was there, Haridas said, "Now I've finished. Now I've finished my chanting for this month, and as I promised you, I will fulfill all your desires. Kindly ask me whatever you want, and I will satisfy you." By this time, 3 nights in a row, of course, she'd been hearing him chant. Her whole consciousness had been transformed. She completely lost all interest in what she came for. And she actually, not only that, but she also recognized her own condition. She fell at the feet of Haridas Thakur, begging forgiveness and praying that he accept her as his disciple. She became a pure devotee. And she said she apologized, she told her what had happened, that this Ramchandra Khan had sent her there. And Haridas said, "You don't have to tell me this. I knew all this before you came. I know exactly why you came. I know all about Ramchandra Khan. I know everything about all of this. And the only reason I stayed here was because you were coming. I knew you were coming, so I just stayed here so that you could be delivered. So now, you stay here, I'm leaving, and you chant 300,000 names a day here in this spot." But she didn't. She stayed there and chanted 300,000 names. So Haridas Thakur association transformed her into a pure devotee. In fact, it's said that she had developed Krishna prema by his association. Not just a practicing devotee, but she achieved Krishna prema by his association. So that's the result of a pure devotee's association. It's a two-way thing. It's not like, it's the forced thing. But that's the nature. They create this Vaikuntha atmosphere, and anyone who stays in that atmosphere for some time will also be transformed. In Haridas Thakur's cave, there lived a poisonous snake. I don't know if you have a poisonous snake. No, you don't have a poisonous snake living here, do you? Where's Prashad? I didn't bring my snake. I have a snake. I didn't bring him tonight. Have you seen my snake, Prabhu? You haven't seen him? I didn't bring him on this trip. He's getting a bit old. He used to come all the time. Dayananda will have seen. Where's Dayananda, Prabhu? Dayananda? Is he hiding? You've seen my snake, haven't you? You must be maybe forgotten.
Snake.
My snake. Anantananda, his name is. You've seen him. I used to bring him on all the trips. Some years. He hasn't been on a trip for about 4 years now. Huh?
Where's the snake
He's in
now?
Malaysia now,
Is he?
living in Malaysia. But he might come again, I don't know. He's been retired for about 4 years now.
Okay.
He used to travel all over. He's been to India, Russia, England, Australia, New Zealand, everywhere. Fiji. I think he came to South Africa also, I can't remember. Been all over Europe, he's been everywhere. But he,
Real snake.
retired snake. He's living here. You got a snake living here? Where's Prasad? Do you have a snake living here? Oh, we could have done the drama. No snake. What to do? Anyway, in this cave there was a very, very poisonous snake, which emitted strong vapors that no one could remain there for even a moment. So heavy the smell. Poisonous, the vapors. No one could stay there. Haridas was staying there. He didn't even notice it. He was just chanting. Chanting, absorbed, Niranthara Namalao, etc. Constantly absorbed in chanting. And therefore he was not disturbed by prostitutes, by whippings, by snakes, by anything. Because he was constantly chanting. If they were whipping him, he was constantly chanting. Never stopped for him. Just like Prahlad Maharaj when Yakashi tried to kill him. He was not disturbed in any way, either personally or even physically. Completely protected by the Lord. Internally and externally protected. The main protection is internal, but even externally the Lord made it. So Haridas Thakur was completely undisturbed even by this snake, deadly snake, living in his cave. He didn't mind. Snake wouldn't touch him. Snakes, like everyone else, are guided by the Supreme Lord. And even themselves, they do have consciousness. They do respond to your consciousness, you know. A lot of times it depends how you relate to them, how they relate to you. Not always, but a lot of the time. It's always actually, if it doesn't look like it, it's because of something that's happened in the past. It's a karmic thing, it's just coming back. So then everyone started to discuss. People would come from the village every day to visit Haridas, but because of the snake they could not stay long enough to speak with him. They just come see him, oh, and go away. Oh. Haridas Thakur was oblivious to the snake's presence. The Brahmins discussed among themselves about the foul air, and they consulted some Ayurvedic physicians in Fulia. These medical men strongly felt that Haridas Thakur should vacate the cave. Joining the Brahmins, they went to him and said, "Because of the vapor created by the snake living here, no one can remain. You should go and find a suitable place to live." Haridas replied, "I have been living here for a long time and I have never felt inconvenienced by the vapor that you speak of. Still, if you are distressed, I shall leave tomorrow. If it is true that the snake lives here, and if it doesn't leave by tomorrow, I shall find a new place. Please do not worry any longer. My only concern is that you do not waste your time in mundane talk. Every moment should be utilized in topics of Krishna consciousness." That is a reminder of what we all heard before, no doubt. Don't waste your time. No prajalpa. So that was his words to them. While the Brahmins and Haridas were thus conversing, so the sun began to set. Then, much to everyone's surprise, the snake suddenly came out of its hole. Its huge, frightening body had bright red, yellow, and blue stripes. Can you imagine? Yellow, red, and blue stripes. Very beautiful, colourful. You ever seen a snake with yellow, blue, and red stripes? Yes? No? Where? You seen a snake? Have they seen snakes? In the where?
In some zoo.
In the zoo. You've seen it in the zoo. There are snakes, lots of them in Australia. I don't know about one with a blue. I've seen one. Have you seen one? Blue, yellow, and red. Maybe it was in some kind of hallucination condition or something. One time we were going around Govardhan Hill in Vrindavan. A small group, 4 of us, going round, and right on the path in front of us was this big snake. I don't know if it was multicolored. I don't know if it was yellow, blue, and red. Multicolored. Big mouth. He just swallowed something. So, big bulge here just under the mouth. Kind of looked at us as we were just as far away as we are from Kate and the little girl. And I think looking at us, he stopped. I wish I had my camera. I forgot to take. I forgot to take a picture of it. The thing was lying there looking at us. So he kind of stopped and kind of moved and went around in a circle to continue on. A big, bright coloured, I don't know if it was poisonous or not, but a very brightly coloured snake. So this guy was really, really beautiful coloured. Very frightening and very big. The serpent slowly slithered. It had a brilliant gem also on its crown, on its head. And it slithered past the Brahmins and left the cave forever. Right there and now. After the departure of the snake, the burning sensation caused by the poisonous air vanished. The Brahmins' respect for Haridas Thakur increased, for they knew that the Lord, Paramatma, had directed the snake to leave, so that his devotee would not be inconvenienced. Nor so because Haridas Thakur wanted that these other persons should get the chance to become Krishna conscious. He wanted them to be inconvenienced. There is another similar incident that was related by a snake charmer. This is one very wonderful pastime. You can summarize the pastime and tell some of the benedictions. After this, Haridas Thakur, he went going around chanting, and this will be the introduction. There is another similar incident. One day in the courtyard of a rich man's house, the snake charmer, there was a snake charmer, that rich man had a snake charmer in his house. The snake charmer was performing a snake dance by chanting a mantra to the accompaniment of musical instruments. Haridas Thakur happened to pass by, and he stopped to watch the dance. Although the snake charmer was an ordinary human being, by the influence of a mantra he could dance as if possessed by the spirit of Anantashesh. With an enchanting melody he sang about the pastime of Lord Krishna chastising the Kaliya serpent. He was singing the pastime of the Lord, dancing on the hoods of Kaliya and so on and so forth. Haridas listened intently to the pastime of his beloved Krishna. Then suddenly, being moved by ecstasy, he fell unconscious onto the ground. When he regained consciousness, Haridas got up and roared like a lion and danced in ecstasy while speaking incoherently. The snake charmer was impressed by Haridas's manifestation of ecstasy, and he moved aside out of respect. As he remembered Lord Krishna's merciful behavior towards Kaliya, Haridas Thakur's body trembled, he cried, and then he rolled in the dirt. The people gathered there tried to assist Haridas by singing songs of the Lord's pastimes. Finally, when the ecstasy subsided, Haridas left, and the snake charmer resumed his performance. Everyone who witnessed Haridas Thakur's ecstasies felt spiritually thrilled. They smeared their bodies with dust from his lotus feet. But there was a cunning and deceitful Brahmana in the crowd who decided to try and cheat the people. The Brahmin thought, I will also dance here. I can understand that these people are not very intelligent. They offered so much respect to this low-born fellow named Haridas, just because he danced wildly and cried. If I, a Brahmin, also dance and cry, surely the people will worship me. The Brahmin threw himself onto the ground and feigned unconsciousness, as if he had fallen into a trance. Seeing this, the snake charmer became furious. Picking up a stick, he beat the Brahmin relentlessly until the pretender got up howling and ran away. That's it. Bengal it says it. He was crying, "Mother, Mother, save me, Mother, help!" The state charmer then resumed his dance and the crowd was astonished. He never said anything, he just beat him. Eventually a man came forward and with folded hands inquired, "My dear sir, why did you stand by respectfully as Haridas danced and yet beat this Brahmin for doing the same thing? What's the reason?" In reply, the snake charmer replied. However, it wasn't the snake charmer, it was said the Ananta Shesh spoke through the snake charmer in glorification of Haridas Thakur. He said, "This is very confidential. Still, I will answer your questions." He also said, "I have to thank you very much because now you've given me a chance to glorify Haridas Thakur." But it said with 1,000 mouths, he began to glorify Haridas Thakur, as if he had 1,000 mouths. He's an Antashesh, always glorifying Krishna, but Krishna's more pleased when he hears his devotees glorified. He said, "Still, I will answer your question. When Haridas danced in ecstasy, each of us felt spontaneous respect and affection for him. On the other hand, the Brahmin was simply imitating Haridas, so that he could gain cheap adoration from the crowd. It was not out of love for Krishna, but because of enviousness toward the Lord's pure devotee. The Brahmin threw himself onto the ground and feigned ecstasy. Besides, he was interrupting my dancing, therefore I punished him severely." Both at it because he was envious and because he was interrupting Anandashesh's dancing, he punished him. To receive the shelter of devotional service at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, one has to become pure and free from all deceit. By seeing Haridas Thakur dance, one becomes free from material bondage. Haridas is affectionate and compassionate toward all living entities. He descends as the eternal servant of the Supreme Lord in each of his incarnations. Even in his dreams, he never commits an offense against the Lord. A moment's association with Haridas Thakur can purify any living entity and assure him of eternal shelter at Lord Krishna's lotus feet. Haridas appeared in the family of Mohammedans on the order of the Supreme Lord. Now it's very interesting. The identity of Haridas Thakur, but we'll leave that for now. Because he was ordered by the Lord to take this birth. If a pure devotee of the Lord appears in a low-class family, he is no less worthy of worship. This is the injunction of Shastra. And if one appears in a high family but does not worship the Supreme Lord, his life is useless. Just to prove the truth of these statements, Haridas Thakur was born in a low-caste family, just as previously Prahlad Maharaj was born in a family of demons. Nothing to do with where you were born. It's a good fortune if you're born in a good family, or Brahmin family, pious family. It's good fortune, but the danger is you become proud. You become attached. And you can be offensive towards others too. That's dangerous, very dangerous. One time Prabhupada, when he was in Vrindavan, two of his disciples, the sannyasis, went to see, visiting the temples, early days. They came to this one temple and the priest was there and he saw these two young American sadhus, whatever you want to call them, came there and he said, "Oh, very good, you were doing very nicely." He said, "If you carry on like this, you may be fortunate to be born in a Hindu Brahmin family in your next lifetime." The priest said. They never said anything, they just said, went back and Prabhupada asked Prabhupada, what, were they supposed to say anything or what? And Prabhupada said, "Yes, you should have said something, and this is what you should have said. And you can go back and tell them, if you wish." You go back there and tell the priest, "If you carry on nicely like this, doing your worship for days, you may be fortunate in your next lifetime to be born in New York." And in New York, you may become a member of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement and preach Krishna consciousness. They don't understand. The purpose of deity worship is not deity worship per se. It's to please Krishna. The purpose of everything is to actually become, totally pleasing to Krishna. To become an instrument of the Lord. In the case of Sankirtan, to become an instrument for the spreading of the Sankirtan movement. That's the greatest benediction we're going to have. Not that we'll just remain or happens to be fortunate to be born in a Brahmin family or a Hindu family, very fortunate. In of itself, if we don't, same thing with knowledge, if we don't utilize this, it's not really much value. It's not a big credit. If you have a lot of money and you don't utilize it, it's not a big deal. What's the big? It's actually not to have any money. Because you become a miser and you become miserable. So unless you actually utilize that opportunity properly, then it's better not to have it. And unfortunately, just being proud of being whatever it is, proud that we have a degree or proud that we're born a Brahmin, something it's like a heavy weight, load, which will hold us back in that social life. If one appears in a high family, just to prove this truth of these statements, Haridas Thakur was born in a low caste family, just as previously Prahlad was born in a demon's family. The snake charmer concluded his talk saying, neither 1,000 vows nor 1,000 years would be sufficient to describe or hear the wonderful qualities of Haridas Thakur. You are a fortunate soul because your inquiry gave me the opportunity to glorify a pure devotee and you the opportunity to hear this narration. Then the snake charmer Nagaraj felt silent. The assembled Brahmins and other gentlemen felt great satisfaction to have heard about the glories of Haridas Thakur. Haridas was a pure devotee of Lord Chaitanya. Although Lord Chaitanya was yet to inaugurate the Sankirtan movement, Haridas continuously demonstrated his love for Lord Krishna. So this is some pastimes of Haridas. And we'll finish the reading there. Some lessons to be learned from all of this, of course, manifold. Whether it's tolerance, not to imitate, whether it's humility, respect for others, not blaming anyone else, forgiving others. What else can you say? Showing that it doesn't matter what your birth is, it's what your activity that counts. What are the lessons you learn? What lessons to learn? What are the lessons of it? Constantly, Nirantara Namalav. Vrindavan Das Thakur said this is the main lesson Haridas is teaching us, that whether we're happy or distressed, we should always chant the holy name of Krishna, all the time, in every situation. What else? It doesn't matter what your birth is, religion. What else?
You should be aloof from all the mundane things.
Aloof, but not aloof in the sense that if you have responsibilities, you should still continue to perform your duties without attachment as a result. Is that the one flipped out one? Friend to every living entity, no enemies. Understand the Lord is guiding everyone's wanderings. What else? Yes, that's a very important one. To not waste your time in mundane talk. To always try to utilize whatever chance you can in trying to talk or remember Krishna. Mata Dasitatam Vishnu Vishmataram Jatachi. Or remember Krishna, never forget him. What else?
Love for everyone. Love for everyone.
Love for everyone, yeah, this extension even further of the being equal to everyone, but not just being equal to everyone, but actually feeling giving whatever love, in the case of Haridas, is pure love towards everyone, just wishing everyone could also attain that platform of love of God. No matter, even though they're trying to beat him to death. It's only possible, ultimately. I mean, another time Lord Chaitanya was discussing with Haridas later. They were actually together in Puri. Lord Chaitanya was asking Haridas Thakur to... Lord Chaitanya was behaving as if he was in anxiety, and Haridas said, "My Lord, why are you in anxiety?" Because Lord said, "How will all the living entities be delivered? I cannot see how." And Haridas said, "You've already delivered them by the loud chanting of the holy names. But what about the non-moving living entities, the trees and the other living entities who are not moving?" And Haridas said, "They are also delivered by the loud chanting, even though sometimes you hear an echo." He said, "Actually, the echo is the non-moving living entities chanting back. They're also being delivered in this way." So, Lord Chaitanya, and then he explained how Lord Chaitanya is delivering every living entity from this material world. So it's not just humans, but all living entities. So a pure devotee is feeling for all living entities. That's why another reason the loud chanting of the holy name is so important, because it's not only the humans who develop that higher consciousness, but entities in other forms of life, you know. Just like we're in the park this afternoon. We're doing kirtan in the park, we're chanting together with some devotees and some children. It was Arvind's birthday today, so we went to say Hare Bol, happy birthday and all that. And we were chanting kirtan in the park, and quite a few birds are coming up. One seagull particularly came up very close. Probably thinking, and probably quite familiar with what happens in the park, that when a group gets together, sooner or later they have a picnic. And he's probably, someone other, he was there during the kirtan, so we're very patiently waiting for the prasad at the end. But, you know, it's a very unusual and very fortunate bird. So the birds get the benefit. They get prasad and they hear the holy name. The plants, the trees, the grass, they move very low consciousness, but still they get some benefit. Some benefit there. Even your own body, inside our own body, there are many, many, many living entities besides ourselves. They also get the benefit when you take prasadam. They also get benefit. So it's a very universal process. It's not just us alone getting the benefit. Everyone who comes in contact with the same thing gets benefit. It may take time before it manifests, but they all get the seed of bhakti. All very fortunate. Any other comments, questions, or lessons? Yes, Paul.
Can you please tell a little more how Haridas had to reach to Jagannath?
How did Haridas have to reach Jagannath?
How did he reach to Jagannath? How did he get there? Well, when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, round about his 19th or 20th year. Took initiation round about his 19th or 20th year. Up to then he had not manifested his Sankirtan in public. At that point he started to preach the holy name, Lord Chaitanya. Haridas was already doing that, but they were not associated, hardly. So once he started that Sankirtan, Haridas Thakur then joined Lord Chaitanya, because Haridas was residing and associated with Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya knew what was going on. So as soon as Lord Chaitanya started Sankirtan, Advaita and Haridas, they came over and joined the Sankirtan party in Melbourne week in the house of Shiva Thakur. And there are many pastimes there with Haridas Thakur and the house of Shiva Thakur. And when Lord Chaitanya decided to take sannyas, Advaita and Haridas were both devastated, and especially Haridas, because he thought, I'm Muslim born, I cannot go to Puri, because he had the idea that Puri was like, you know, Lord Jagannath's seat, and no non-Hindus, even then the non-Hindus were not supposed to go into the temple. So sometimes people say it's because of the British, but it doesn't appear to be the case, because 500 years ago the British had not gone to India, and even then the standard was that non-Hindus were not supposed to go in. So, I mean, whatever reason being, the Muslims, different things were going on. But whatever, he thought, I cannot go there because I am low-born, fallen personality, and you're going to go there, I'll never get the chance to associate again. He was feeling very, very disturbed, but Lord Chaitanya assured him that he could come to Puri also. So when Lord Chaitanya went off to Puri after taking sannyas, he left and went to Puri and he requested his mother. So he only stayed, Lord Chaitanya only stayed about 2 months or 2 in Puri before he went on his South Indian tour. So a few years passed by, during which time there was no contact between, we mentioned Haridas, but not only Haridas, all the devotees in Navadvip had no association with Lord Chaitanya. And after a few years, Lord Chaitanya returned to Puri. And when he came to Puri, it was not too long before the Rath Yatra festival of Lord Jagannath. So news spread to Navadvip that Lord Chaitanya returned. So the devotees in Navadvip decided they would go to Puri. And so Shiva Nanda Singh, particularly Shiva Nanda Singh, and others also, they organized a tour to Puri to see Lord Chaitanya and to go for the Rath Yatra. So they all went, and Haridas went along with them on that tour. So then when they got to Puri, Lord Chaitanya, Haridas was there, and Lord Chaitanya arranged and requested Lord Haridas Thakur to stay there, and Lord personally arranged his accommodation not far from his own accommodation. He never entered the Puri temple, but he was allowed to stay there. He wouldn't go near in case the Brahmins saw him. He would stay at a far distance and just meditate on the flag and the chakra on top of the temple, chanting the holy names. So he went there with the other devotees for the Rath Yatra festival, never went back again. He stayed there for the rest of his life, on the request of Lord Chaitanya, because he wanted to stay there too. He wanted to live with Lord Chaitanya. And he left his body right there in the hands of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very special personality, Haridas Thakur, as they all were. He wouldn't have gone on his own. The other devotees took him. He was very humble. The other devotees pretty much insisted he came along.
What's the difference? Like how do we distinguish the teachings from Chaitanya Charitamrita and Chaitanya Bhagavat and Brihad Bhagavatamrita?
Brihad Bhagavatamrita?
And Chaitanya Bhagavat. What's the distinguishing difference?
Between Chaitanya Bhagavat and Chaitanya Charitamrita?
Yes.
The distinguishing, you mean what's the differences? What are the differences? Well, the ultimate goal is the same. Maybe the angle of vision sometimes is a little different. Sometimes the pastimes are slightly differently described. Most of the pastimes which are described in length, just like that one with the snake charmer, is only briefly mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because Chaitanya Bhagavat was compiled first, and it deals mainly with the Lord's early pastimes in Navadvip, mainly. And Chaitanya Charitamrita deals more with the later pastimes of the Lord. Chaitanya Charitamrita definitely is more direct when it comes philosophically speaking, much more direct, because in Navadvip there were no, there were some, of course there were some, but there weren't so many of the preaching pastimes in terms of philosophically preaching. Mostly that took place after sannyas. But Chaitanya Bhagavat hardly deals with the Lord's pastimes after sannyas, it just briefly mentions them. Chaitanya Charitamrita briefly mentions the childhood pastimes. Some of them it goes into length with, like Jagaya Madai and a few others, but mostly in Kaviraj and Chankazi, but mostly they're only briefly mentioned. And Kaviraj Goswami specifically says he didn't want to expand upon anything, he didn't want to talk about anything which Vrindavan Das has already talked about, except for briefly. Unless he hasn't described it, then he would expand on it. So, of course, the teachings of Krishna Das Kaviraj explains in the Chaitanya Charitamrita a base mainly on Raghunath Das's accounts from Puri. And Raghunath Das got all the information he didn't receive directly. Puri, what's going on there? What are you singing? What's that song? I don't know that song. Can you sing it again? Radha? Which one's this? This is not Radha. What's this one? Shriya? 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 This is, where's Radha? Where's Radha? It's here. Where's Radha? Shriya. So, and tell the children are definitely getting enthusiastic now. The time of the day they get enthusiastic. They've done very well for 1 hour and a half. They've done really well. Where were we? Where were we before this song? Where were we? Can't remember where we were. Where were we? Come on, remind me.
We were doing a differentiation between Chaitanya Bhagavat and
Chaitanya, yeah. So Hare, so Kaviraj Goswami got Raghunath Das Goswami was the one who described all the pastimes of the Lord. Now Raghunath Das Goswami was not so involved in the early pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. He was involved in the pastimes entirely in Puri, and he recounted those to Krishna's Kaviraj in Vrindavan. And that's how it was written. But he'd also heard from Sri Damodar, who was not so prominent either in Navadvip pastimes. Murari Gupta kept the diary in Navadvip of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, and Vrindavan Das Thakur was not involved in Puri at all. He was in Navadvip, so he was very associated with Murari Gupta, and that's where he got all the information from Murari Gupta and the other devotees there in Navadvip. All the devotees were there still. So he got a first-hand account of the Lord's pastimes in Navadvip, and Raghunath Das' first-hand account, personal account actually, of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes in Puri. Whatever he didn't know, he got heard from Sri Damodar, and he recounted that to Kaviraj Goswami. Of course, in both cases, Vrindavan Das and Kaviraj Goswami, they're both pure devotees, both empowered to write on the pastimes and teachings. There's more teachings philosophically in Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's perhaps more emphasis on etiquette and Vaishnava dealings and behavior in Chaitanya Bhagavat, which is highly emphasized. Loving relationships between devotees, strongly emphasized. Not so much direct philosophy in Chaitanya Bhagavat. It's a little easier, you could say, from the point of view of unphilosophical persons, or persons who like sweet pastimes, to read Chaitanya Bhagavat. Chaitanya Charitamrita has some pretty heavy philosophy in some places. Especially the Adi Leela, first 6 chapters are pretty heavy, or the discussions between Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and even Janananda Goswami going into great depth about various tattvas, or the discussion with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya on the Atmarama verse, 64 different interpretations of the verse in different angles, every angle you can think of, and so on and so forth. There's Prakashananda on the impersonal Brahman, sort of things that most people find a little kind of tedious to absorb. You don't find that in Chaitanya Bhagavat, hardly. It's mostly just learning through pastimes. Very simple. But there's no difference. The goal is the same, the principle is the same. It's just that the dress may appear a little different, but the form is actually the same. The substance of it, is the same, even though the form may be slightly different. Certainly they're not in any way contradictory, totally complementary to each other. Completely. Both have their, you can say, top significance. Anything else?
What was Haridas Thakur's spiritual position?
Good question, but to give an answer to that, you enter into a very mysterious world. A world which is not within the grasp of mundane perception. It's generally understood that Haridas Thakur is Lord Brahma, and there's no doubt about that. That's scripturally stated. Lord Brahma took birth as Haridas Thakur. However, it's also said Prahlad Maharaj was Haridas Thakur, and it's also said that Brahma Mahatapa, another great personality, was also Haridas Thakur, and we just read, and if you picked it up, but the Ananta Sage said that Haridas Thakur appears whenever the Lord expands in any form of incarnation. Haridas Thakur appears along with him to assist him. And we also read, if you read elsewhere in Chaitanya Charitamrita also, it states that Lord Brahma is always desiring to have the association of Haridas Thakur. You read all these statements, you do wonder about who Haridas Thakur actually is. Because we find many places that when the Lord appears and his associates appear, other jivas enter in to get their association. Now we only think in terms of external, but on the higher level, now for instance Lord Brahma doesn't have a gross body, he only has an intellectual body. So if he's going to become Haridas Thakur, it's on the intellectual platform, it's not on the physical platform. So, he can also be there internally along with Haridas Thakur. I don't know if you can understand that. That externally you may associate with somebody, but on these planes, internally you can associate on the mental and intellectual platform. You can be literally there with that person. And as far as the external vision is concerned, you are in that person. Because all the people see is the physical form. But it doesn't mean that you become that person. Just like you enter in the spiritual world, you may develop the mood of Yasoda Devi, but you can never become that. So it seems that Lord Brahma wanted to develop the mood of Haridas Thakur. And we also read just now that Lord ordered Haridas Thakur to take birth in that lowly family. However, if you read it in Navagupta Mahatmya, you'll see that Lord Brahma is praying to the Lord that he may take birth in a lowly family. Completely the opposite. So how do you reconcile the two opposites which appear in different statements here and there? And there's nothing to say that they can't all be true. That Haridas, there's nothing to, I'm not saying that it is, but there's nothing to say that Haridas Thakur himself is an eternal associate of the Lord. He's not an ordinary conditioned soul per se. Even Lord Brahma is not an ordinary conditioned soul, but he is nonetheless a jiva. And there's nothing to say that he cannot enter into the internal form of Haridas Thakur. Neither say that Prahlad Maharaj. They are actually, in the case of Prahlad Maharaj and other great personalities, they are kind of expansions of the Lord's potencies. And when those particular potencies are required, the Lord may manifest them himself directly, or they may manifest through his devotees. So Prahlad Maharaj also was present there as Haridas Thakur at certain states, certain situations. The potency or the mood of Prahlad Maharaj manifested, like the whipping when he'd been beaten. That is said to be the presence of Prahlad Maharaj. But these are internal. They're not considered to be, there's different tattvas, and they're considered to be the Shakti, the internal Shakti, or the internal potencies of the Lord. Who expand, when the Lord expands, his potencies expand, and they become personified. They have their own simultaneously, you could say, simultaneous existence. However, they are potencies of the Lord, acting for the pleasure of the Lord, or for the Lord's purposes, to fulfill various purposes. And there's nothing to say also that Haridas Thakur cannot become Lord Brahma, and then again, to serve the Lord, he can also be Lord Brahma, as not an ordinary person. Now, when we look back, for instance, at the pastime of Lord Brahma, when he was famous pastime Brahma Vimohana Lila, when he stole the calves from the cowherd boys, it's generally described in there that Lord Brahma became overwhelmed with his own bit of his own false ego, you could say, a little bit of pride by his own opulences, and challenged Krishna. But if you read the actual Bhagavatam, that's not exactly what happened. Lord Brahma himself, it states there that the Lord himself orchestrated it. Lord Brahma thought, now then, these pastimes of my Lord are so wonderful, let me do something now which will cause him to perform even more wonderful pastimes. So there's a lot more to it than just the simplistic answers are all there and they're all true. They're, so it doesn't get too complicated with the whole issue, and people just carry on with their business, But there's always a lot more to it than meets the eye. So with Haridas Thakur, he's very mystical. Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj just writes it off. He says it's usually concluded that he's Lord Brahma, but he doesn't get into the details, because otherwise you're opening up an unlimited kind of dimension when you don't need to necessarily. But for those who really are delving deep, then these things do become a topic of great interest and absorption. There are other references too, but they're not confirmed by our particular acharyas as to who Haridas Thakur is. No, we kind of generally stick to the line that is remaining mysterious. Certainly Lord Brahma is Haridas Thakur, and certainly Prahlad is Haridas Thakur, and certainly Brahma Mahatapa is Haridas. That's all confirmed by scripture. Beyond and above that, it just remains little mysterious as to whether Brahma is Haridas or Haridas is Brahma. Remains mysterious, or both. One of his forms can be Brahma, and then he enters back into his actual form of Haridas, or is it the other way around? Either way you can look at it, it becomes... These things are not within the grasp of Jiva's experience or conception. I find it fascinating subject, and I can't help but feel strongly that Haridas Thakur is... And some others say that he's worshipper of Lord Vishnu or Narayan, not actually Prema Bhakti. But that's not possible. How can the prostitute develop Prema Bhakti if he doesn't have Prema Bhakti? You can't possibly get it if your guru doesn't have it. It's not possible. Everywhere you look, and here he's manifesting ecstatic symptoms, which are automatically found in one who's a Prema Bhakti. There's so many references there to his evoking Prema Bhakti in others immediately, just by seeing him. So there's no question from being just on the Aishwarya Bhav platform of Vaikuntha, worshipping Lakshmi Narayan or something. Plus he's chanting Yuga Dharma, praying Nam Sankirtan. It's not just the usual Yuga Dharma, it's praying Sankirtan. Why would Lord Chaitanya, in every Yuga he appears to establish the Yuga Dharma of Nam Sankirtan, but this Yuga he comes himself. Normally he comes as Gaur Narayan to establish the worship of Narayan, usual. But in this age he's come in the form of Mahaprabhu and to establish praying Nam Sankirtan, or the Sankirtan of Vrindavan, Brajbasis. So why would he choose somebody who is a worshipper of Lakshmi Narayan to be his chief whip in distributing the Yuga Dharma for awakening Prema Bhakti in everyone's hearts? It just doesn't add up. He could have chosen anyone. So many fathers of eternal associates. Why did Rupa and Sanatan stay personally with Haridas Thakur? They're manjaras. They're going to hang around with somebody who's in Aishwarya Bhav, confidentially talking day and night, and none of them entering the Jagannath Puri temple. None of them. Rupa and Sanatan also didn't enter the temple. They stayed with Haridas. He's in Aishwarya Bhava. It just doesn't make sense that they're going to have... Or why would Lord Chaitanya come and see him every day with prasadam? It's just... It's like a smoke screen or something like that. Beyond that, there's much more. Certainly anyone who's the chief whip, so to speak, of the Yuga Dharma praying Nam Sankirtan must be in the mood of praying. Otherwise they can't possibly be the chief acharya of the most important process of developing one's eternal loving affection for Krishna in Madhurya Ras, which is what all the devotees were in practically. Nam Sankirtan is to lead to Madhurya Ras. It stays straight there in Chaitanya reading Bhagavad. Anyone who chants this in the mood of Haridas Thakur will attain the highest platform of love of Krishna. You must have it, otherwise you can't possibly share it with others. That's just how it works. If your guru doesn't have it, then the guru will appear through somebody else to give it to you. which we see all the time in the festivals. The Guru may only have so much, and then the real Guru, Krishna, appears in another form to give you whatever is required to go further. Fascinating topic.
In the pastimes of Hare Thakur and Saran Malak, you just mentioned, a lot of examples like prostitutes and the serpent, and the snake, and also Hare Thakur being beaten in the marketplaces. They all show the exalted qualities of the tolerance and determination. They are very tolerant and also they are very, very determined. Now, from these examples, how do we get that mood and how do we just develop that mood of having some tolerance? How do we develop the qualities?
Well, this is one way. I mean, you know, it's a big topic how to develop tolerance, but this is one way, is that one associate with persons who have it. So by hearing about Hare Thakur or Prahlad or Jesus Christ comes out also, as we're in the season of Christian Jesus. But similar, there's some close correlates with Jesus Christ also in this too. One can develop the natural, tolerance is a natural quality of the soul. The natural quality, which automatically develops as the soul becomes more and more pure. True tolerance, not just the tolerance based upon material motivation, intense motivation, therefore I'll tolerate any damn thing to get what I want. But the true tolerance of the soul, undisturbed because of their connection with Krishna. It really comes depending on our actual connection with Krishna. The more we actually connect with Krishna, and the more naturally one can tolerate. It doesn't mean you tolerate, that we're trying to tolerate having a toothache or, some injury. That's not the real. The tolerance is one within. One's not tolerant. One's not disturbed by, in one sense, not disturbed by those things either. You can feel them, but not disturbed by them. They don't control one's life. One still feels them. Or let's say the criticisms of others, or whatever it is, the lack of recognition. There are certain things one doesn't tolerate, however, and that mentioned here also blasphemy of the Lord, blasphemy of the devotees, and different things which we may not tolerate in the same way, even one's own inability or own ineffectualness in devotional service. We may not want to tolerate that, so to speak. But the real tolerance is really based upon our seeing Krishna in the center. Everything is based on that. Humility and tolerance, and all these various factors. And how to develop that? Well, that's the process of devotional service. There may be some material processes to develop external tolerance, but the real tolerance within, tolerating the mind's demands, tolerating the intellectual, the false ego and all these things, not being overcome by it, not being driven by it, not being driven by the falsities of others, not being driven by duplicity and so on, but actually, genuinely being focused on Krishna. Automatically, nothing will disturb one, nothing, no matter what it is of this world. Okay. Even your mind, your intellectual, wanderings, the egotistical pictures of ourselves and so on. Nothing will disturb. They may come and go, but you won't be disturbed by them. You tolerate without being disturbed. They come and go. So that really comes in the full sense of the word when we're connected with Krishna. However, as we know, it says that only one who is tolerant more than a tree, humble more than the straw on the street, respectful to others, not expecting any respect, can constantly chant the holy name. So that's true also. So you can't constantly chant the holy name until you come to that platform. To come to that platform, you have, it's like catch-22. So they go on simultaneously. You become more and more, as you chant more and more in the right mood, then gradually the heart becomes cleansed. You become more tolerant. As you become more tolerant, you chant more. You chant more, you become more tolerant. As you become more tolerant, you chant more, until there's completeness. It's not one or the other, they go on side by side. It's not like, oh, I'll have to wait till I'm tolerant before I chant, or I can't be tolerant unless I chant. They both go on simultaneously. They complement each other. But when one comes to the full platform, more tolerant than a tree. You may be as tolerant as a tree, but you're not more tolerant. Haridas was more tolerant because a tree tolerates, but a tree does not shower benedictions on those who are cutting it down. Whereas a devotee is more tolerant because he showers benedictions on those who are trying to cut his body into pieces. He's more tolerant than a tree. And it never stops. It's not like when they finish, then your tolerance stops. No, I get my own back on them. No, not at all. There's no motivation, selfish motivation involved whatsoever. You don't tolerate anything which is unfavourable for devotional service. Nonsense. High state being. When we practice that in family life, you get a lot of practice. You have to be very tolerant in family life. I'm sure you experienced that by now, I don't imagine. Tolerate a lot. So it's a great training ground for Krishna consciousness family. You have to be very humble too sometimes. And you certainly don't expect to get much respect. The children are expert at testing us. The wife is also. And from the wife's point of view, she sees the husband is very expert. The whole arrangement is there to bring us to that platform. The Lord's hand's working and everything. You don't have to get too kind of mechanical about the whole thing. Just get on with things. Chant the holy name with all the attention you can. Try to avoid the offences and get on with it. Everything else will come. Make it too complicated. Render service to the devotees. And there you'll find you have to be in association with devotees. You have to become tolerant and humble because, you know, you have to tolerate a lot. You have to be humble, as you won't stay. In the association of devotees is very important. But sometimes in the association of devotees you find things don't go the way you like, or someone doesn't shower their respect on you the way you think you should be respected. It's the Lord's arrangement also, so you can kind of get free of the desire for them. That will only happen in the association of devotees. Serve the devotees. Very important. Discuss these great personalities' pastimes and teachings. And try to chant attentively. Hare Krishna. Okay, it was getting late and I see that mouths are already starting to dribble. I can see the saliva dribbling out of people's mouths. Getting thirsty, hungry, angry, I don't know what they're getting. Tired, this, that, the other. Children are very patient. He's very humble and patient. Because we had a good feast. He had a good eating. He learned, his two little gurus. He taught him how to eat nicely. And with boldness, not to be too shy. When prasadam comes along, don't be shy. Go for it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mother, for enlightening us on the subject matter of Chaitanya Bhagavat. It's very nice to hear the pastimes of Srila Haridas Thakur. So let's pray for getting the mercy of Srila Haridas Thakur and also the senior acharyas. So Srila Haridas Thakur ki.
Yeah. By their mercy, that's the point. By their mercy we can develop these qualities. You answered your own question. By the mercy of these great devotees you can develop their great qualities. By serving them and by their mercy.
So, thank you very much, Maharaj. Also, I would like to thank Janananda Prabhu, who is the man behind this program.
Ooh, there's a man behind it. Where is he?
You see, I had a...
Where is he? I can't see.
Janananda Prabhu?
Is he behind somewhere? Janananda Prabhu, where are you? Here he is. Where is he?
So,
Janananda! Where is he? Is he gone? Where is he? Hiding?
Yes. Sitting on the sofa.
Janananda, where is he? Shy. He's shy.
So just thanking you, Prabhu. Thank you for organizing, giving us an opportunity to serve you, Guru Maharaj. So thank you very much. Last but not the least, all the assembled devotees to come and get the blessings of His Holiness
And thanks to
Janananda,
Prashad as well. Thanks
all
to
Matajis.
Thanks to
And
Prashad.
also thanks to Sushmita Mataji and Prasad Prabhu. In spite of their busy schedule, Prasad Prabhu has been working for the whole day, and he was telling me about the hectic day he had from the work. And also Sushmita Mataji and Mataji's mother, Manjulata Mataji, and for a lot of efforts that put into organize this program. Thank you very much for them. And for the protection of the whole family, Sushmita Mataji and Prasad Prabhu requested to have Narasimha praise. Maharaj, if you can sing Narasimha praise for the protection.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Ramo Ramo Hare Hare. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Pravadavadayine Hiranyakashi Purvakshaham. Hiranyakashi Purvakshaham. Kilatam Kanakalaye. Kilatam Kanakalaye. Ito Narasimho, Ito Narasimha, Parato Narasimha. Yato Yato Yamitato Narasimho. Yato Yato Yamitato Narasimha. Vahe Narasimho Hridaye Narasimho. Vahe Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha. Narasimham Harim Sharanam Prapade. Narasimham Harim Sharanam Prapade. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Tavakara Kamala Varena Kama Bhutashindram. Talita Hiranyakasipu Tanobindam. Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Tavakara Kamala Varena Kama Bhutashindram. Talita Hiranyakasipu Tanobindam. Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Tavakara Kamala Varena Kama Bhutashindram. Talita Hiranyakasipu Tanobindam. Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Tavakara Kamala Varena Bhutashindram. Dalita Hiranyakasipu Tanobindam. Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Narasimhare. Narasimhare Jaya Narasimhare. Jaya Narasimhare. Narasimhare Jaya Narasimhare. Jaya Narasimhare. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj. Jaya 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 Prahlad Maharaj. Shri Nrsimha Bhagavan ki jai. Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Gaura Premanande. Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much. Very good. I got some stickers for the kids, I think. Some of them have already got them.
Kids.
Finish. I haven't got that many actually. I got some. Come on. Hare Krishna. First come, first serve here. Well, I give something to the others too.
Okay, Rishi.
Amrut. Sticker. You peel it off like that.
It's not the left, it's the whole thing.
ఇక్కడ ఒక గుండు. Thank you.
So next, Janananda Goswami Maharaj, let's thank him by loudly chanting 3 times. Hare.